Yeah, the track does see a lot of racing. It stands up well, like they have a meeting there most weeks. Cops a bloody good hammering and it stands up really well. Probably gets a little bit cut up around the 800 mark, but other than that, it's usually pretty good on the day.
I walk the Gold Coast track before races. I look to try and, to what I think in my mind is the best possible lane. In recent times, runners have been getting away from the fence down there, especially if there's a little bit of moisture around, so I take particular note as to whether I think the fence is the place to be or not.
Mostly looking for, when you walk the track, the speed lanes, how wet it is, where the best section is, where the worst section is, where you think you can position your horse in the run, just all those little things.
Greatest attributes about the Gold Coast would be the location and definitely the track itself. Plenty of good starts there. Every horse has their chance there, and again, with being at the Gold Coast, it draws fantastic people to the races.
I love to ride at the Gold Coast. Mainly, I know the track very well. I ride work there 3 days a week, and that's a big plus to know a track. And the more you know a track, the more least mistakes you probably will make. So, yeah, the Gold Coast has always been good for me.
Look, the best attributes of the Gold Coast is, generally speaking, for the amount of racing the Gold Coast has. I think it always races quite fairly. So always weather dependent, but I think most horses get their opportunity.
What I'm looking for when I'm walking the track is the better going, looking for the fast lane, which part of the track's better than the other part, especially when it's wet. You're just looking for the fast lane.
The best attribute to the Gold Coast would probably be that it's a pretty fair track. You know, they can come from behind. They can win from the front. It gives a lot of horses their opportunity to fulfil their racing pattern. Things I look for when I walk a track like the Gold Coast and any other track, I look for places where I think tempo will come off. If you're on the front runner, you want to know where people do not want to make a move, and you ride your race accordingly. You work out where tempo is going to come off if you're in a position to do so, and if you're at the back, where not to make a move.
The starts of the Gold Coast, the 1800's a tricky one, short run into the first corner and you sort of either got to get a position or you might get bustled out of one. 1400 metres a good start, long run into that first corner, plenty of time to work your way into a good position. Starts like the 12 or 800, quick little sprint runs. If you draw wide there, you're in a bit of a tricky position, but most starts are pretty fair.
Look, barriers are relevant from several starts there. I suppose the 1800 is one in particular where you've got a really short run into the first turn. Horses always look to use a little bit of a, intermittent pace early to find a spot and not be caught deep throughout the trip, which can ultimately, win or lose the race in that first 200 or 300 metres.
A few of the starts at the Gold Coast, the 1200 metre, you have a few decent starts there. 1200 metres is a good start. The 1400, you have a really good run in. Again, with the wide barrier at the 1800, you probably do have a bit of time once you get in the back straight, but you have to do a bit of work.
Yeah, the advantages of barrier draws are, to me, very important. I think 3, 4, 5 is probably my favourite. It gives you a couple of options, but definitely, and especially at the Gold Coast, I feel barrier draws are very important. My favourite barrier at the Gold Coast, or any track, is 4.
The type of horse you need at the Gold Coast for this type of year is obviously they race at a pretty high level, so first off they've got to be able to gallop, but horses that have got good gate speed that can race in a prominent position are at an advantage, I think.
You need a very, very good horse. The races at the Gold Coast throughout carnival time, they're very strong. We see all the Sydney and the Melbourne trainers come up here, and as we saw, the Hollandale is nearing a Group 1 race, so you need a top liner, that's for sure.
Myself, during the carnival, I think the right type of horse to ride would be horses that can place themselves. You're racing against top horses. You don't want to be given a lot of start. That gives bad luck. That comes in part. So I think horses that can put themselves in a position.
The carnival horses at the Gold Coast are pretty strong. Obviously, you get a lot of interstate runners going first up into those races for maybe an easier target going into their group races, and then obviously you got horses that are trained at the Gold Coast running there every week, and it seems to be very strong fields on a Saturday. It's good for on-speed horses. It's local for most trainers. and they just run it so well.
Look, the fields at the Gold Coast are always competitive. It's a great day's racing, big prize money on offer, and I think it's only going to go from strength to strength. Big punters should look for how the track's playing, where the rail's at. I think punters are very spoilt now for information. I think they've just got to look at those external factors and how ultimately the track does play, and hopefully they can come up with the right horse.
My most memorable moment riding at the Gold Coast would be the 2013 Magic Millions, I suppose, which I won on Real Surreal. I've been fortunate to win quite a few big races there, but that's probably the standout.
I think my most memorable win would have to be Royal Tiff in the Ken Russell. She was good odds that day, and she got a lovely run and come down the outside and just got him on the line, so I was happy with that day.
My most memorable moment at the Gold Coast would definitely be winning on Irish Constabulary in the Country Cup on Magic Millions Day. To come from well back in the field was a massive thrill.